of knowledge. Yeah, there's certain people that
Do
just
you know
it's
about alchemical sexual alchemy? There's 33 vertebrae in your spine. There's 33 years in the life of Jesus.
Christ, yeah.
So this substance comes from your medulla, makes the trip down your spine to your sacrum, which is Christ coming down into human form.
Yeah.
And if you don't squander that essence, that sexual essence, it ascends again and goes back up to heaven, which is your thing. It's also the story of Santa Claus. Why he comes down the chimney is because this juice or this whatever substance actually passes what's called the claustrum, which is where they got Santa Claus. So it goes down the chimney and back up the chimney.
holy shit.
It's
Right.
In the brain,
Basically saying
in
Santa
the,
Claus come from your imagination.
cranium, there is the cerebrum. And in the cerebrum, and in particular the claustrum is sitting right there in the middle of the head, virtually. From the claustrum, there is a secretion, brain fluid. And this fluid is an oil. And in ancient times, this fluid was called, in Greek, it's called Christos. It's called the Christ.
I've researched
It's
all
this beautiful fluid which comes from the cerebrum and pours down the spinal cord. It goes down the spinal cord and it reaches the sacral plexus,
your solar plexus.
right next door to the sacrum, which are the 5 second bottommost
At the bottom,
fused
where the shit heads up.
vertebrae bones at the bottom of the spinal column. The bottommost portion of the spinal column is called the coccyx. Then just above that is the sacrum.
That's your
5
base chakra.
fused bones. So the sacral plexus is connected to the sacrum. And the fluid which comes from the cerebrum pours down the spinal cord and comes to the bottommost part of the spinal cord. Now, the claustrum is
That's the
otherwise
stomach
known as the
chakra.
holy claustrum, simply
Yes.
because of this beautiful oil, this Christos, that is produced and secreted. You see, the word secret comes from secretion, because this secretion is a secret. And the sacrum is the sacred part of the secret. As the secretion pours down the spinal cord and reaches
That's
the sacrum,
real footage.
this is the marvelous way in which our body has been designed. And the spinal cord is basically just an extension of the brain. It also does thinking. And you see, the holy claustrum is otherwise known as the Santa claustrum. You see, because this fluid that goes down to the sacred plexus is a sacred fluid. And this is where the story of Santa Claus bringing presents down the chimney comes from. It's a story of physiology. And the Bible is a beautiful manual of physiological regeneration. What happens with this
Allegorical
fluid
allegories, like
is
Maynard
that
says.
every month when the moon is in the sign where your sun was when you were born, every month there is a germ or a seed planted in the solar plexus, which is just above the sacral plexus. And that germ is the oil, the Christ, which is born in Bethlehem, because the solar plexus is otherwise known as Bethlehem, where the seed, where the Christ is born. And that seed, that oil needs to return whence it came, in the midbrain. You see, as the oil ascends the spinal cord, the vibration of the oil of the Christ increases. And you see, first of all, the oil is differentiated in the pineal gland and the pituitary gland before it is sent down the spinal cord. And the pineal gland is the electric portion, and the pituitary gland is the magnetic portion. So the oil is...
Right now, any mechanic will tell you that a motor runs off of electric and magnetism. That's what makes them crank. That's what makes them run. Every motor in every car that's ever been built. So, and also, I have researched everything in this video in many other browsers, many other. So I'm not just going. I don't just watch one video and say, okay, that's the gospel or the God spells.
This makes so much sense here because, like, I'm gonna tell you, back during XPL trials, you know, back in the day, probably about 15, 20 years ago or so, I probably can count on one hand how many I did, but the story of some idiot, you know, some smart idiot that basically got some of the story but didn't know how to tell it, said something like this, which is making sense. They was like, man, I don't do X pills because it make the blood from your brain drip on your spine. And that was like all they said. And this is like making me remember this is what they was trying to say.
How many times does somebody see something that, oh, that shivers down the spine, or I felt that. There's a rock and roll production company called Spine Farm.
Yeah.
And this goes into the chakras and stuff as well. It ties it all together.
Yeah, because your spine is basically
and it is brought down the spinal cord via the Pingala and the Ida.
That's right to the chakras.
These are what is otherwise known as the Kundalini and the Kundabhatha. So it arrives at the sacral plexus and awaits for the germinating of the seed once a month, 12 times a year.
It's called the Ashwitz.
And if we are able to transmute that seed,
transmutation,
cause it to rise, as it rises in the spinal cord, it eventually reaches the medulla oblongata and the pons and the midbrain, and it crosses the vagus nerve, otherwise known as the pneumogastric nerve.
Become pneumo.
It's a nerve which descends from the brain area.
That's the throat
from
chakra,
the
right
pineal and pituitary glands, respectively.
Comes from the heart chakra.
The hairs are standing up on my arm right now.
And the stomach. It's a network of nerves. And this network of nerves is called the tree of life. And you see, the ancients knew that this seed that is born in Bethlehem once a month is the Christ. And that if one were to abstain from sex during that period, that oil and seed would be saved. And it would rise. And it would burst through the heart chakra, through the throat chakra, and eventually the oil would arrive with its higher vibration, because you see at the bottom, the oil has a very low vibratory rate.
That's where the shit has up at the bottom.
With proper practices, meditation, breathing, good eating,
this is crazy because we all just had a spiritual sound bath.
Able to raise that
the spirit house like a couple weeks ago, like all five of us.
That it crosses the vagus nerve at the top of the spinal column, the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column. You see, because the Christ is crucified at 33 years of age. When the oil arrives at the very, very top, there awaiting is the optic thalamus, an egg-shaped organ in the middle of the head.
The crux.
When it crosses this pneumogastric nerve, this is called the crucifixion. The oil is not killed and destroyed, but it is magnified 1,000-fold. And the oil then touches the optic thalamus, and for 2.5 days remains in a condition that is considered to be dead, and then reaches the pineal gland after 2.5 days, and illuminates
One spark,
the optic thalamus
one word.
and the pineal gland.
Mhm.
The optic thalamus was known as the light of the world by the Egyptians and the Greeks because they knew their physiology and anatomy. And they knew that this precious oil, which descended from the claustrum,
Descending.
from the cerebrum, and was differentiated in the pineal and pituitary glands, and descended the spinal cord, they knew that it would ascend eventually, and that the enlightened portion of mankind were able to cause this Christ oil to ascend so that it would ascend to the optic thalamus and cause it to be lightened. What in turn
Pattern of
happens
sins
is
comes
that
back
millions
around.
of brain cells that were dormant
How
are
many
now
times we heard about
awakened.
all these brain cells that we don't use?
And you see, there are practices and there are things that are very, very detrimental about this oil, or that are detrimental to this oil. For instance, overeating and alcohol and sex practiced at the wrong time. These destroy the seed, and this is what is known as eating from the tree of life. Because you see, the ancients knew that once the oil is depleted because of riotous living, the fleshly organism dies. Death results from using up all of the oil. You see, the oil that descends from the cerebrum is known otherwise as the manna from heaven. You see, because heaven means heaved up. And the head, the cranium, the dome which sits on top of the torso,
The dome of the rock.
that was known as the heavens, you see. And the heart area and the heart chakra was known as the Midgard, or the middle garden. And the generative area was known as Sodom and Gomorrah, the area of
Animal
desire,
instinct.
animal desire. You see?
Ego.
That's
And
where the
otherwise known
Ashwantala,
as Egypt
what
and
they
hell and the
that
world,
chakra.
etc. Whereas the Garden of Eden and the land flowing with milk and honey, that's upstairs. In fact, the pineal gland produces the honey, a secretion known as honey, which has DMT in it, and the pituitary body secretes the milk. This is the milk and honey.
Melatonin.
And the land flowing with milk and honey is upstairs. This is a sacred secret simply because the secretion which comes from the sacral plexus is one of the most important things that we need to know for physiological regeneration. You see, by saving the seed, one can actually live longer. In fact, the ancients used to live for thousands of years
That's in the Bible.
by
That's in the Quran.
protecting
That's in,
and keeping this secret and guarding it. The Egyptians built ascension chambers, pyramids, for this very purpose. And they taught the science of respecting and keeping and guarding and looking after this beautiful oil. And if you know the Gospels well, you will know all the scriptures that are referring to it. You see, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness. The light of the world is the optic thalamus. Keep your eye simple, for if your eye is dark, your whole body will be dark. That eye has always been known as the third eye. In fact, it's the spiritual eye. Now, as for the deniers, you see, most churchgoers will be denying this because in their
I
mind,
was just going to say that.
Jesus Christ is a historical person, which
Just going to
must
say that.
return
Every
physically
time I try to
in
talk
order to save
spirituality
them,
around
because
Christians, it's
they
like they
cannot
want to,
save themselves. They need a
You know,
vicarious,
Look,
third-party
vicarious.
savior.
Vicarious.
Whereas the opposite is true.
That's what I'm saying. I've been thinking about, like, I've been watching it and I've been like hinting around in tool chat rooms and stuff. I'm like,
Right.
surely this band I've been following my whole life doesn't know the whole damn secret to life. I mean, I've been like thinking I was crazy, man, like completely insane.
Dude, you're
And
not alone.
I've always wondered where Maynard gets all
The
these lyrics
Historical
from.
person,
Mhm.
which
But-
must return physically in order to save them. because they cannot save themselves. They need a vicarious third-party savior. Whereas the opposite is true. And this is what the so-called Apostle Paul was talking about when he referred to the sacred secret
How
of the
old
Christ
is this
within,
video?
the Christ that dwelleth within.
Well, it's been
For you
took
see,
down
the kingdom
many
of God
times,
is
but I
within.
have it.
It's
I
not
have it
without.
recorded.
And in fact, the words of Jesus are pretty clear where it says, do not be looking out
Send it
there,
to me.
for the kingdom of
For
God
can
will
heaven
not come with
come with
striking
striking
observableness. Don't look here and don't look there, because there will be deceivers saying, oh, there he is. Here is the
Deceiver.
Christ. There is the
The
Christ.
deceiver from fear not
Because
from.
the process is within. And
Not without.
unless
It's the way.
one is able to
There's a spiral.
raise that energy and get out of the bottom chakras. You see, the bottom chakras deal with sexuality, strife, envy, power, greed, wealth, and all of those things. And if one is constantly seeking those things and constantly eating of the fruit of the tree of life, you see those beautiful nerves, the pneumogastric nerve system, they are responsible for bringing the oil back up, those beautiful spiritual presence. And we are the ones who are responsible for channeling that oil, that Christ seed within, so that it eventually is crucified in the middle of the head. You see, the cerebrum is
Crucify the
hollowed
ego.
out, and the midbrain and the limbic system at the top of the spinal cord is the holy of holies. And the cerebellum, which sits at the back of the brain, this is otherwise known as the small brain. The cerebrum is associated with the top of the head, Aries, and the cerebellum is associated with Taurus, and the left brain, the male left brain.
That's why the
The
bulls
right
are
brain is
buried
the
in
feminine,
Egypt.
and it is connected to the cerebrum, Aries, the God brain. You see, we have the God man is the cerebrum.
Like I said, you
The
God
Adam
sent.
man is the cerebellum.
There's
You're
In
good
church,
sense.
you won't get any of this in church.
your
This is
spirit,
esoteric
Holy
truth.
Ghost.
Exoteric truth denies this and has been perpetuated for the last few thousand years by so-called Christian
See, all of that,
churches in order
That's
to deny
occultism right there.
and
That's
hide
worship.
the
Idol
true story
worship,
of
man
physical
worship,
regeneration.
and following rules.
In the past, people have lived for thousands of years by preserving.
Noah lived for 900 some years. And look, the religious people aren't bad. They're in a cult and don't know it.
Yeah.
It's like, and this is why this is separated me from all my family, because they think I'm some kind of devil worshiper or something, and I don't even believe in the devil.
Right.
I don't believe there's one being. I mean, heaven's perfect, but there was a war that started there, and everybody got kicked out. It don't make no sense at all, none.
No, and then when you gonna die, we all go to heaven. That mean where all the dead people that ever died just hanging out. What they doing? Not cussing, not fucking, and just sit up there singing hymns out the Bible. I doubt it. I doubt it.
It's
I doubt that somewhere.
heaven and nirvana and enlightenment and all these terms, saved. We don't need to be saved. We save ourselves because the divine spark is within us.
Yeah.
It's like the Creator reached down and gave us all a little tip of his. It's like God is living vicariously through all of us and experiencing reality through our eyes.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's not like this is denouncing a God. This is denouncing. I heard a great saying once: if you can let man turn you away from God, in other words, a church or something tell you that you're not good enough because you walked away, you never believed anyway, then you were never in a relationship with God. You were just in religion.
Yep.
That is a great saying.
And here's one I believe, like when it comes to Christianity and when it comes to religions, as soon as you walk in the church, the first thing that religion tells you is seek ye the truth.
And it tells you don't have to come here to.
This might not be your truth. This might not be where you're going to find it. I got a lot of people sitting in here that they want to sit in this vessel because the congregation feels like we need to look over and, okay, we bowing our heads. Okay, I need validation that I'm a good person. They need this vessel. And this is how they're going to find their truth. But you might be too smart to be sitting here with the idiots. You know what I'm saying?
It's easy to prey on someone when they feel weak at their worst times.
Exactly.
When they're vulnerable and they need reassurance. I mean, it's so you. Let's finish the video and then we'll talk about it in more detail.
Conserving and conserving this oil and transmuting it so that it reaches the optic thalamus. You see, what happens when the oil reaches the optic thalamus is that new blood is generated in the body.
Saved through the blood of Christ in your
as
soul,
this process has occurred, we will have old toxic blood in our physical organisms. And in order to regenerate and produce new blood, the oil must be raised to the optic thalamus, and healing can occur. And as I said before, the millions of dormant brain cells are reactivated. And the heavens, the cerebrum, were awaiting the return of the prodigal son. You see, because we all have these dormant brain cells in our brains. Yes, because they have not returned any of the oil. And in the Bible, this is known as tithing. You see, this is why the Bible says you must return 1/10 to the Lord. Remember, the Lord, the L-O-R-D,
not the L-O-R-D,
refers to the gold.
Like a landlord.
You see, this is how we turn lead into gold. Our spinal cord is like a thermometer. And as the mercury rises with warmth, the more so with knowledge and consciousness and knowledge, we are able to raise the condition of this oil. And as it climbs the spine and ascends, it raises its vibration. In fact, when it gets crucified at the top of the spine, where the pneumogastric nerve is crossed,
crucify the ego.
This does not mean death. This means, crucifixion means to multiply 1,000-fold. And you see, not only is physical regeneration a result of this, but also spiritual regeneration. And one is able to experience the higher mind and clairvoyance. You see, mediumship occurs down in the solar plexus. There are 4 brains in the human body. The cerebrum, what is otherwise known as the God brain.
This video could very much be the blueprint of Tool's catalog.
I've been thinking I was crazy, bro.
No, you're not. That's exactly, I mean, I'm sitting here comparing notes and
actions in the body, such as breathing and blood circulation. And the 4th brain is the solar plexus.
Like, I'm hearing
instinctive
brain, I'm hearing all the lyrics. We sitting there comparing the lyrics out of what we ether,
from the air, you see.
Even the 7-point star.
And we just talked about that, the animals. Correspondingly, without reason and logic, instinctively. So you see, this is why it is so important to raise the oil.
Bringing out
so that one can get out of the lower mind. The lower mind is the solar plexus. And wrought with problems. You see,
this is what I believe in.
One ascends to heaven, the heaved up place, the dome of the cerebrum. You see those 2 flaps, those hollowed out hemispheres of the cerebrum are otherwise known as the cherubim. You see, in the Bible, God says to Moses, you must build the Ark of the Covenant with 2 cherubim above the Ark, covering over. And inside the Ark shall be placed the manna and the law of God, the 2 tablets. Well, I'm here to tell you that the optic thalamus is the Ark of the Covenant. And the limbic system and the midbrain, the pons, the medulla oblongata, the pineal gland, these are the Holy of Holies. This is where one needs to return the good oil. In the middle of the head, there is something known as the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the little horse. This is the white horse that Jesus rides upon. There is something known as Ammon's horn.
This is takes the cake.
Absolutely. Ammon's horn in the middle of the head.
Jesus' name, Ammon.
Ammon's horn? Goodness me. Would that be in Jesus' name, Ammon? The same dude? Yeah, it would. We have the claustrum. We have the cerebrum, the covering angels, the cherubim, which cover over, because the cerebrum covers over the cerebellum and the midbrain.
Nostradamus tried
and the
to
optic
tell them
thalamus.
this. Aristotle.
And the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, otherwise known as Joseph and Mary. You see, these two are the ones that are responsible for sending the oil down the spine, down the spinal cord. And they are the ones that await the return of their son, who is born in Bethlehem, the solar plexus, once a month. Once a month, when the moon is in the sun sign that you were born under.
That's even the cover of a Perfect Circle album.
Yeah, man.
I've been wanting so bad to compare notes with somebody that knows Tool's discography so well. So
I'm the perfect person to get on this
Hi,
with.
guys. Completely crazy, man.
I am
mean,
Johanna. I am obsessed with ancient history.
Yeah, I'm the perfect person to get on this with.
I mean,
So
even the total solar eclipse that's going to happen soon is the perfect circle. It's
Oh, and thanks to the 6 people still out here fucking with us.
Thank you. Yeah, I was about to say that, man, because it's a hard thing to talk about. And again, it's why Maynard always says that thing that you just can't go there. You just can't.
Y'all
think
welcome to
about.
join in.
That's where you should focus, because if you can resonate and understand that thing, then everything else is gravy.
Exactly.
As Pink Floyd sings about, we call it riding the gravy train. You know, that's why Floyd, and that's why Floyd has the pyramid and the lights coming as their symbol. Also, why like America sings that song, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. There's so many songs that talk about this kind of nonchalantly.
Even in school is glanced over, but you got to look how it's done in school. School will tell you basic science, biology, math, reading and things just to get you by. But these things, we learned about all of these parts of the brain in a science book in 9th grade. But they just skip right over it just to say, okay, look, we talked about that, but we can't go deep into that because we need them to use that brain to worry about math so they can learn how to get out here and be shit in society instead.
And think about it, your solar plexus. So, and if you can generate new blood through Christ, then you save your soul through Christ's blood. The blood of Christ saves your soul. It's not saying the Bible's wrong. It's actually confirming the Bible. But they're allegories, allegorical allegories. Something Maynard made up that word. Allegorical elegies.
Yeah, and Christos, meaning Christ, meaning the anointed one. Anointed, meaning it's an oil. Anointed Christos ointment. There's an
now
oil.
I can put the cherry on the cake. The pineal gland has always been known as like a pine cone. The largest pine cone monument on Earth sits in the middle of the Vatican. The Pope that
has a pine cone on the staff.
Has a pine cone on the staff.
Yeah, there is always this signs and symbols right there in front of us. It's just this is how we find it.
Now. I mean,
this is how we find this shit and talk about it without them telling us, because they're not gonna tell us. They hope we get here. We have to get here is where we at. And they're not gonna tell us this shit what we talking.
Even through reaction channels, I've met so many people on other continents and other parts of the world, and I realized that we're not so different. It's the governments and the structures it may be that tell us right in two, that divide us right in two. The angels on the sideline, The angels have been referred to as the entities that people constantly see in the DMT.
In the DMT, there's 10 different
experiences.
entities, and I can go into that because
They're mapping the realm literally legally
that's what I said. We
right
need
now.
That's what I said Psychonaut TV is about, a map. We need to start mapping this stuff out because I've compared a lot of psychedelic stories with people. I'm in the psychedelics all the time, and I talk to people all over the country with this, you know. So I hear, yeah, I seen this, and then somebody else would be like, I saw that too, but I saw further down the street, and somebody like, yeah, I saw it from around the corner. We need to start. There is a map, and they're placing it inside of us. And I'm gonna tell you, my first good DMT trip, when I was coming out of it, I could see, like in the air, like in between me and this computer screen, I could see physical webs of information. Like we are computers. When you have these aha moments, when you have these aha moments, oh yeah, it just came to me. No, this stuff is coming right from the air. There are physical lines of information coming downloaded right to us all the time. Before we actually made physical computers, we are the computer. We compute this shit. We come up with the shit that's in computers. We just do it a little bit slower because we're thinking about the shit in front of us instead of the shit that's actually directly piped in from the atmosphere. DMT, a good DMT trip, I physically saw this shit. You know, it sounds crazy, but we sitting there talking about crazy shit that only can make sense in this realm, you know. But I physically saw strings of information, and it just made so much sense. That's how we tap into, you know, the universe and others and other species, and we'll be able to do that telepathic speaking as soon as we reach 46 and 2 and understand that we are one species.
There's 7 minutes and 9 seconds here where Maynard tells this story and explains it. The whole thing we just heard, and he uses ducks. He explains it with ducks. It's funny that if you walk like a duck, talk like a duck, it might be a duck. I swear, watch this. This is Puscifer, an Easter story.
Huh. I've never caught this little Easter egg.
Several years back, during one of our beautiful Arizona springs, I had a bit of a aha reminder moment while walking the ducks from their bunkhouse over to the orchard pond. Once they take a quick swim and eat their breakfast, they tend to circulate all around the orchard throughout the day, eating new weed growth and bugs. And I do a roll call, coming and going, to count the ducks, because we have predators at night, and we risk losing a duck if they're left behind. And this particular evening, I was short one, so I did my due diligence. I poked around the pond, under the peach and apricot trees, along the fence line, and eventually I found Larry, one of our first ducks that we raised from a duckling.
And how does he even have time to do this shit?
Normally all the ducks lay their eggs.
Maybe he raises oil.
And then head out.
Man, it's 3 Maynards. I swear it's 3
of them. Sitting on eggs in one of the shrubs. And had to kind of fish her out. It immediately reminded me of Easter egg hunting as a child, and a lesson that I learned from a local farmer and neighbor. She explained to me that this ritual of searching for eggs was not random. Although to most modern folk it seems to be just that. A random, non sequitur ritual. She said that the reason for most people's opinion on this matter is because every grocery store, everywhere, has eggs available year-round. 6-packs, 12-packs, 18-packs. Every color, every shape. And, you know, because they are so readily and abundantly available year-round, we forget the struggles of a time period when they were not. There was a time when egg laying was directly associated with spring and new growth and rebirth and survival.
Reminds me of Zeitgeist.
Perpetuation of all creatures who had survived the long winter. Of course, the perpetuation of these ducks relied on their eggs not being found by other winter survivors, obviously. so they would cleverly hide them from the predators. It was a fairly simple story of to be or not to be in basic survival, and one which, in my opinion, we have lost touch with. In a way, Easter egg hunt is a cognitive and situational awareness survival training for our kids, as well as serving as muscle memory for times when we might need it most. Eggs are the last item in your refrigerator to go bad, and this has everything to do with their shape and the absence of corners, that idea, that metaphor of infinity and regeneration. Thermal density and the interplay between subtle, almost imperceptible heat and cold enjoy uninterrupted random movement inside that infinite surface of the egg. So kind of a survival of its own. And an appropriate symbol for the vernal equinox of the new light that it brings, resulting in everything springing to life.
You wonder how you put these lyrics together.
Keep in mind this period of time arrives on the heels of a long period of darkness. If a family had a difficult growing season that affected the harvest from the previous autumn or the fall equinox, surviving the long night could prove difficult, and on the shortest and darkest day of the year, at the end of December, known as the winter solstice, family, friends, neighbors, they bring each other gifts to ensure they make it through. These were gifts of hope, and in some cases, literal salvation. As romantic a notion as it is, we are not islands, and we cannot always do this thing called life on our own. The cliche, it takes a village to raise a child, also applies to maintaining a healthy village.
I love you, Maynard.
Man has taught me so much in my life.
This is where it gets the lyrics for reflection. Right?
There's a breathtaking
That's why that
celestial
song
event
that song resonates
that
with me.
serves as
That
a
song
perfect
is the
metaphor
one
for
that
this healthy community ideology.
it was
known
like
as
a
the
dog
Paschal
whistle
moon.
to me.
This is the full moon following the spring equinox when it lands in
Egg moon.
April. It's called the egg moon, not coincidentally. If one has a clear view of opposite horizons, there's an incredible moment that can occur just at sunrise when the egg moon is visible. For a brief moment, the moon appears to be as bright as the sun, and they seem identical. Using the cycle of the moon as a metaphor for the lifetime of a person and the waxing thin sliver of light as their awakening consciousness and the formation of self, and the waning light as our elder years. Then the full moon represents that fully developed self, the full light of our accomplishments and personality shining for all to see. But in reality, this is not the person's or the moon's light at all. It's the infinite light from a higher power, the sun. Then we are simply reflecting that light, which, in the instance of spring, is the bringer of life, rebirth, reproduction, resurrection, reconnection,
This is
of salvation, of infinity,
like guys thinking.
and of hope. Have a happy Easter.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I can't say enough. I can't use. I'm
Maynard
speechless,
just
fucking speechless.
Maynard just explained every religion in 2,000 years of
In
questions
7
in
minutes
7 minutes with ducks.
with ducks and eggs. and it's just brilliant because, like I said,
I just had a God. I just had
damn.
a spiritual. I'm crying. My damn hairs are standing up on my arm.
I'm feeling the same thing, man, because I never saw that, and it's like every
That
time
is
he
as
speaks
spiritual as
something
it
I
gets.
haven't heard, it's like I listen. But it goes back to what the other video you just played before him. He said some people run away from this, some people tune it out. I'm thinking about that because I try to talk this to people. I try to teach people psychedelics, even though when I'm talking about psychedelics and talking about this part of it, people are like, "Oh, it's a drug, it's illegal." It's like, fuck all that. I'm trying to teach you something. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to. They don't
All
really.
it does is get rid of muscle memory. I can
Mhm.
drive my car fine on psychedelics, but if I take these pills that I'm prescribed, Valiums and Adderall, I might get my ego to think I can drive really fast stuff. But when I'm on
Yeah,
psychedelics, I realize I'm in a damn 6,000-pound piece of metal, passing all these
exactly.
people inches away that could end my life instantly if I just
Right.
take my attention off for a second. So I'm very cautious about it
Mhm.
and very, like you said, I can almost see the trees breathing and understand that everything in this room is not still right now. I'm not alone. Everything is made up of atoms and particles and
Exactly.
um,
Psychedelic experience, DMT experiences. Like I said, I saw a web of information.
it's
You
doing
can't
wonders for
unsee this. You can't
PTSD too.
unknow this.
People that have been taking medications and seeing psychiatrists for years, soldiers and stuff that have PTSD, take one treatment sometimes of microdosing in a controlled legal environment and never have to take another medicine again, and
Yeah.
literally are cured of the PTSD, which is one of the most
I was
terrible
diagnosed
things
with it
on
back
earth.
long time ago. I was diagnosed with it and went through a depressed stage after I got stabbed and went to prison and all of that. Yeah, I felt a lot of that stuff. But microdosing, it's like I look back, you have to have a conscious mind of growth and development. And that's the only way you're gonna find these enlightenment things. That's when you're gonna find these psychedelic medicines. You're gonna get the psychedelic treatment from it, and you end up having conversations like this with people that are like-minded instead of sitting around talking to idiots at this time of night. You know what I'm saying?
And it almost after gaining clarity through spirituality, we'll call it, it takes your need for small talk away. You don't want small talk anymore. Small talk is, you want to talk about things that mean something, things that are
Yeah.
relevant, things
Yep.
that will change the world. Because nobody standing on the corner doing small talk or standing in line of an institution has ever changed the world. The only people that ever changed the world, Joan of Arc and Aristotle and people like that, were the ones that stepped outside the lines of reason, pushed the envelope, watched it bend. They went lateralist. They didn't stand in a line, a straight line.
Exactly.
And look, the only reason I have had the time to find these videos, like even you haven't seen, is because, I'm terminal and I've had to face my mortality and my divinity and look, staring death in the eyes, and I hear it all the time. Well, we're all dying, man. We are. But
Yeah.
when a doctor tells you and gives you a timeline, and you feel your body dying every day, like I can't walk in the bathroom right now without huffing and puffing.
Right.
And I don't want pity. That's not what I'm after. It's made me have the time to sit here and research things that I've always questioned and didn't have time for because I always had to work or had something else to do. And also meeting people from all around the world through reaction channels and realizing that we're all really the same thing. We all go through
Exactly.
the same emotions, everything just different times and situations and